notes that sound like at the different speeds and doing glissandi, that kind of feels when you're there that the time is kind of elastic, that you kind of don't know where you are, that you're suspended in time, and which is kind of the feeling that I have when I go to Sintra. I have this idea that I'm suspending in time among the mist and, you know, the Palacio da Queen and the Moorish castle, that everything seems to be floating. So that's the feel that I wanted to give to the piece. And this is part of a triptych that was just performed in Gulbenkian last month, which is Alfama, which is another piece, and which is, of course, a neighborhood in Lisbon, and Ilgi Al-Mutamid being one of the great poets from Beja, from our Middle Ages. So the whole triptych is 35 minutes long. I received this commission from a local ensemble called Dinosaur Annex, which is a very prestigious local ensemble. And actually the director of that ensemble is performing tomorrow. She's the flutist, she's the director of the Dinosaur Annex. And I was still a student, and I was the young composer featured in the Boston Festival of the Dinosaur Annex. And when they commissioned me the piece, they say, congratulations, but make sure this is written for a children's choir, make sure it's not in Portuguese, and we don't want anything in Portuguese. And I was like, you sure? So of course, at the end, the piece was named Four Portuguese Folk Tales and a Lullaby, and of course it's four Portuguese folk tales, but it's in English. I had to adapt certain things because one of our folk stories is said something like, cão mata o gato, gato mata o rato, and so the dog kills the cat kills the mice. And when I showed this to, at the time I teach Americans, like, this is too aggressive for a children's story. Why everybody kills it? So I had to change this to the dog catches the cat catches the mice. But it's just still almost there. But mostly are Portuguese themes. I mean, lately I collaborated with this Palestinian writer, and the text was in English, and most of her texts are somehow, of course, connected with the Middle East. The texts that we were collaborating with mostly are about Middle Ages, so I kind of am pulling the text towards Iberia, just, you know, but it is in English. I think from the last pieces that I wrote, those two are the only ones that are not directly related to Portugal somehow. But the next pieces that I'm writing, the one for the brass soloist of the Boston Symphony, is called Cantigas da Corte, which is inspired by our Cantigas de Mi. The commission for the Minnesota University is Sermão de Sexagésima, which is Padre Antonio Vieira. And I make sure they do it in Portuguese, and they agree. Now the poor singer has to have extra diction classes to sing it in Portuguese, but he's going to sing the sermon in Portuguese in Minnesota and in other universities here in the United States. And then there's also one piece for Culto Gesto soon, this couple of months, which I still didn't think about it, how I'm going to do it, but it's definitely going to be Portuguese. So I cannot separate the two things. It's very hard for me. So unless somebody begs me not to do it, it still has to have something with Portuguese. I have a hard time finding composers that are Portuguese and completely neglect they are Portuguese. You know, they live in Portugal and they want to embrace other nationalities and pretend they are French or German. Somebody's going to tell, oh, that's Portugal. Oh, I've been to Sintra. Of course not. Maybe you think about something else, a book that you read. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you like it. I mean, it's very subjective. I have that goal, you know, because I'm Portuguese, and those are the things that I'm related to. You know, I cannot pretend that I'm related to an emperor, but, you know, I should write about where I come from and my experiences. And of course there are moments, there are other things that I like too, literature, movies, things that inspire me. Somehow, you know, for instance, here in this city I have a piece that was inspired by Dostoevsky, and so I have other interests, but I think the Portuguese foundation is there, and I can be influenced by other things, but I'm still Portuguese. I cannot deny that. I grew up with it, and I'm proud of it. You know, I mean, I'm not going to deny my roots. So.
Although you played folk songs in the beginning as a reference,
Yes.
it seems to me for listening to your piece and what you're saying that your memory is very visual and spatial. Yeah. It seems that the reference to Portuguese culture through your words seems to be, I would almost say, in colors and places and
Yes.
shapes.
Yes.
Even more than sounds, maybe. Could you tell more about that?
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more abstract. I mean, I have to say that I actually started writing in 2007. I mean, I had that first piece for jazz orchestra in 2002, but I started writing contemporary music in 2007. So that was my first orchestra piece in 2007. And I felt the need to explore, the composers that I liked at the time, Stravinsky, Bartok, so on, to explore techniques. And I think because I was in that kind of learning process, I embraced those that seem more immediate to me, so these examples of those two pieces that I wrote all day, actually the first two pieces were pieces that I wrote 3 or 4 years ago, which doesn't seem a long time for a common person, but for me it was because now what I write is very much more abstract. And I think the past 2 years I realized that I start to think in terms of memories of places, not necessarily, oh, now I'm in a village, Portuguese village, let's play this snare drum and now we are all in a village, but more in terms of, okay, there's an emotional atmosphere, like in Sintra, is about the emotional atmosphere that surrounds a memory of something. And perhaps that has to be related to the fact that I'm Portuguese. I feel very Portuguese, but I don't live in Portugal. I mean, I go there every 2 months, but still I had this nostalgia for, Sintra, for things that are part of me and my family and my friends. So more than anything else, I think my music has become more and more abstract and more subjective also because of that, because it not necessarily you'll think that's Portuguese music, but that's how I kind of guide myself. You can make of it whatever you want, but just for me, I relate to that and to those memories. You're right, to certain textures, to certain gestures, is about, especially my writing for orchestra, has to do much about colors, different speeds, things that happen in different speeds. So you have the constant contradiction of times, different times, parallel times, things that happen. So I think that's it.
Tell us something. When you go around the world and present your works, I don't know, my interest is melody in America. If you go to the Midwest, to California, and you introduce yourself as a Portuguese composer, what are the main reactions by those responsible in the orchestras, in the festivals? Do they know about Portugal? Do they know? Do they have any idea about where Portugal is?
No, not
what
really.
kind of artists we have? What kind of work we do?
No. I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised and not so pleasantly surprised in certain situations. And I think one of the first times that I was exposed to something that was really offensive to me was in a time in a festival that we had a group of composers presenting themselves, and these very successful composers from China, Russia, Great Britain, and America. They introduced themselves before me, so they all kind of have the same story. Oh, I started composition when I was 7 years old. I wrote my first symphony and my first piano concerto, which I played with the Benjamin Symphony at 7, and I'm like, this is really not going the right way. And then I went to the stage and I said, well, I started studying music when I was 17, and I only started composing in much later. So, but I remember saying, the first thing that we had to say was, I am from China, Portugal. So the first thing that I said, I'm from Portugal, and immediately I had this journalist right in front of me and say, Portugal? I didn't know that there's composers in Portugal, and I was so offended that I was really trying hard to restrain myself.
you.